Welcome to Business Pulse Talk Radio, the heartbeat of business. I'm your host, Michael Brett. Today we're going to be talking about hemp and cannabis. Maybe I should have some, loosen my tongue up. The last couple of shows we've been talking about alcohol. Today it's going to be on cannabis and hemp. And we have a very special guest with us today, a longtime friend of mine for over 20 years, Tony Nick. We're going to be talking about his company, which is, if I get it correct, Hemp of San Diego. And this is Business Pulse Talk Radio. I'm your host, Mike Brett. Tony, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, Mike. Always an honor to be here. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Okay, what is Hemp Hub of San Diego?
Okay, so Hemp Hub essentially is a company that is a go-to company between the farmers that are growing the hemp, CBD specifically, and extracting it. And then what we are is we're the provider to the dispensaries and the end user. So essentially what we're doing is we're helping the farmers get their product out there. Currently, Hemp Hut has 3 locations and 3 farms that we're dealing with, one in southern Oregon, here in California near San Diego, and then also in Colorado Springs.
So the farmers are concentrating on growing the hemp product, and then you're helping them actually commercialize it and get that product in the hands of the consumer?
Right, exactly. So let's break it down a little bit more. What's happening is the farmers, once they grow the product, they grow the hemp plant, they actually turn it into either an oil or an isolate. An isolate is actually a powder form, and then those oils and isolates are actually used in the creams and the waters and the oils and the tinctures. So essentially the farmer has not a lot of time, right, after farming and extracting the product to actually get out and market their product. And what's happening in the cannabis space is the folks that are in between are brokers, I guess you'd say, and I'm finding that they're not very efficient. So this is why Hemp Hut became available to the industry, if you will. And what we're going to do is essentially break that barrier and that problem that's happening between the farmer and the end user, be it the dispensary and or a person that's just wanting to buy the product direct from the farm. So we're giving the consumer a different option here that's not available to them.
So do you have a storefront, or is it just you get the oil from the farmer and then you contract with retail stores, or do you actually have a physical retail store yourself?
No, we don't actually do it at all. We rely on the product from the farmer, and then we, like I said, the isolates and the oils are what we utilize for the dispensaries that are making their own product and or the brands out there that are making our own product. All of our products that we are deriving from each of these farms are all organic. And we like to stay in the local area. We don't really like to branch out too far from where they are. So it's got that table to farm or farm to table type of mentality. And folks are really enjoying that part of it. And people like local products.
Now, again, for some of the listeners out there, and I'm learning about this process, the difference between CBD and the THC. Everybody, we've kind of been indoctrinated that anything associated with cannabis or hemp, we're all going to get high and get crazy and weird. So let's kind of break it down a little bit between what is CBD and what are the benefits, and then what is the THC that we hear about also.
Okay, so CBD stands for cannabinoid, and there's literally over 70 different types of cannabinoid. We really don't have enough time here to go over each of them. THC is the psychoactive properties. That's the side that gets you the high or the euphoric. So that, yes, they're totally separate, but actually using them together has a lot of people are getting a lot of great results. Whenever you do like a 1-for-1 ratio of CBD and THC, people that have inflammation or joint pain and things of that nature, that seems to be a great ratio for them. But everybody's different. And again, back to these 70 different types of cannabinoids. Because everybody is so different, you have to find the right ratios for you. And so that's probably going to be in development for about another decade. It's just still all very brand new to the whole world. They're just getting great results from the ratios that they're finding now, but you'll find in the future as science starts to break it down more that there'll be more ways of there'll be more benefits and stuff. But right now the pain relief is a big one, anxiety, even depression and things of that nature are being treated with CBD oils and tinctures.
So the CBD is, from my understanding, the CBD is the one that has the health properties that people can consume it by eating a cookie or a brownie, or they can rub it on their skin with an oil.
Right.
The THC, then, if you're not really looking for the health benefits, but you're looking to get high, you focus on the THC aspect of it, correct?
Right. So they're really, they work together, but they're also utilized separately. And so people are using them for different reasons, now, separately and as well. Yeah.
When they do the extraction, are they taking the THC and the CBD apart?
So actually, the CBD plant is totally different than the THC plant. They look similar. One's got a different hue and color, but actually they're a different plant. So they're like cousins. You can merge them together. Some folks do make strands that have the CBD and THC together, but it's not real common. What's real common is just to have the CBD plant grow by itself, so you can get a pure cannabinoid product in the end when you extract it. And the THC side, same thing. That plant provides, 99% of THC in this plant, but they're separate plants.
Well, that's something I didn't know. I thought, again, I'm not really that. I never used any weed when I was in college, 40-some years ago. So I'm getting indoctrinated a little bit about, on the business side, what cannabis is all about. But I never really knew that they were two separate plants. So you're saying that there's a plant that just has the CBD health properties, and that plant does not have any THC in it.
Correct.
And then there's one that has THC, and that's, is the one that gets you high. So,
correct.
And that really doesn't have the health properties of...
No, like I said before, they together, they work well for healing properties and different things. For example, this is probably something that you don't know, that President Jimmy Carter, he had some brain tumors, and they gave him CBD oil, and within a month, his tumors disappeared. So it's aggressive on cancer tumors and things of that nature. But some of the ratios, like I was telling you before, CBD ratio 1, THC ratio 1:1, sometimes helps for other things like inflammation, pain relief, and things of that nature. So there's a lot of different variables on the table now. So again, everybody's still experimenting on what's going to work best for what individual. But CBD and THC can come together, or they can be totally separate. The isolates and the oils that I get from my farms are 99% pure cannabinoid, CBD. So there's no THC whatsoever. So this allows me to go across state lines with product if I want. THC, you cannot do that yet. For example, in the state of California, if you have a THC crop, it has to stay within the state of California. It cannot cross into Oregon.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, okay. Approaching the farmers, what have been some of the challenges that you face in, discussing with them what your service is all about and how you could benefit them? Are they accepting your business proposition, or are they kind of just looking at you with a jaundiced eye and saying, what is this guy all about? And
absolutely not. So that's a great question. So what you have out there is that you have to understand, this is interesting, these farmers, because for a lot of them, I find a lot of these guys have been growing for 30 years. Okay, so for 30 years, it wasn't legal, right? So there is this mantra, there's this paranoia of like, who am I talking to and who can get me in trouble? And it's not going away. So you can't really just roll up to a farmer and say, hey, I'm Hemp Hut, and I'd like to, take your product to the world. They're not that receptive. You need to have some sort of relationship. In my case, I'm an insurance broker, so I was insuring a lot of these guys, getting them quotes. So I had a little bit of an in, but even then, they were really reluctant to talk to me. They wanted to, just basically share with me what they were up to, but there was limited information I found everywhere I went. I went to this MJ BizCon in Vegas, and this year they had it in New Orleans. But even there, where they have a booth, where they're advertising their product, you go in and you talk to them, and they're just sort of limited on what they want to tell you. And a lot of it has to do with the THC CBD issue, meaning if you're here in California and you're growing THC crops, you have certain limitations on what you can grow and certain rules and regulations in certain cities on how many plants you can have and things of this nature. So again, they're limited as to who they're talking to, because in case you're a federal agent coming up wanting to talk to them, they're
You're
really
speaking to the microphone, yeah,
exactly. So they're reluctant. They do their homework and stuff. It's a process to have relationships with these guys. But once you do, what I've found is that they're really receptive. They want to help each other. They want to show the other guys how they're doing it, how their success came from the ground up, and
well, so they don't mind sharing their
they don't mind
stories.
They don't mind once you get past this barrier.
Yeah.
Like once you get into the good old boy network, then they're willing to talk with you, share with you, and see how they can help you get to your next level and whatnot. So they're really receptive, but in the beginning, it's kind of difficult.
But do the farmers see a benefit to using a service like yours, to kind of, an in-between person to getting their product? Because like you said, they want to spend their time on farming and, and kind of getting that down to a better science. So do they see your service as something they really need and want?
I would go as far as to say yes, but at the same time, again, back to their reluctancy to actually associate with anybody providing the service. This is what's provided a lot of these brokers in between. And what happens to a lot of individuals, and this will never happen to our company, but what happens to a lot of companies is once they get in a relationship going with a farmer, then they want to go have it with another farmer, and they want to go have it with another farmer. And then they just start going all over the page. And so certain farms will get neglected. You have to understand, farming is such a tedious process that whenever you get to your cultivation in the end, you have a certain amount of product. And to keep that product fresh and to get it out properly and on time, you want to have the right people that are going to be able to distribute it. But if you become a broker that's going all over the country and you're going in between, which is happening in this space, then you're not committing to an X amount of product that you committed to that farmer, and now you're doing it somewhere else, and that farmer's left with extra product that he didn't normally have. So to answer, yes, they're receptive, but at the same time, they're very selective on who they utilize their business and whose service they use.
And mention again the 3 states that your company is working in. You mentioned, I think, California, and what are the other 2?
California, Oregon, and Colorado.
Okay.
And let's talk about Colorado, because what's interesting about Colorado, I find, is that Colorado is way ahead of us. They're way ahead of every other state. And what's happening, again, unless you have a good relationship with an ex-farmer in Colorado, these trade secrets, if you want to call them that are happening here in California, they're having to figure out. So I was talking to the Colorado people that have been doing this about 5 to 7 years earlier than everybody else, particularly the California people who just started this year. And the California folks are making the same exact mistakes on branding, on labeling, on advertising. But the Colorado folks are sitting back and laughing a little bit. But at the same time, they're realizing this is just how each state is going to have to go about it. They're just going to learn themselves. But the branding companies, the advertising companies, those are the guys that are really coming up in this space, because they're actually being utilized and they're effectively getting results from their advertising. So it's just a unique place. It's a different business right now, but it's worked out really well.
It's well, let me ask, how did you get into this space? I know you mentioned you're in the insurance business, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what made you think about getting into this particular business that you're in now? Did you find that there was a need for aside from being a broker, you don't like that term, but did you find that there was a need for somebody like you to fill this space, and then you did some research, or how did you come upon the idea of getting in this area?
Yeah, it really was. It was the process of quoting for the farmers and the dispensaries out there. I found that there was this big gap, and I heard a lot of complaining, and I sort of heard of inefficiencies financially on how the money was coming in and how it was being utilized. And I saw, and the more conventions I went to, the more people I talked to, I realized that a lot of these farms are privatized. And like you just mentioned, the farmers don't have a lot of time. I mean, it takes a lot of time to do their crop. And now that they're taking on the job of extracting it as well, right there on site, there's just not a lot of time to do the rest. So I saw it as an opportunity to help, one. And 2, I really love the idea of being a part of something that was making a difference. There's like a lot of the CBD is replacing a lot of the opiates that people are taking. Folks that have PTSD and things of that nature, the Oxycontins and the Valiums and things, the synthetic drugs out there that people are having problems with. I saw the CBD products coming in and making a difference. So it's nice to have a business that not only is profitable and interesting, but it's also something that's helping people. And that transition is happening slowly but surely, but people are starting to realize that this plant isn't just something to get high on. It's actually a healer. It's something. It is a form of medicine. And the more that we talk about it and point that out and realize that it's a great healer, you're going to start seeing more people consume CBD.
Yeah, and I think from what I hear on the news and the reading I've been doing is a lot of seniors, the baby boomers, which I'm part of that crowd now, are finding the CBD portion of it beneficial to them instead of taking so many prescription drugs. They'd rather take a natural product, and they're not really being brainwashed by the certain segment out there is saying that all cannabis products are bad for you. They're doing their own research and finding out that CBD is a lifestyle, and it can add to their lifestyle as far as reducing stress. And I think you and I were talking before the show started that you had some insights about reducing stress by using some of the CBD oil. Cover that again.
Yeah, it's a stress reliever, anxiety reliever. Again, as a sort of an antidepressant. Folks that are experiencing depression are taking CBD, and they're finding a great calming effect of it. And it's not like anything else out there. For example, I don't know, like a shot of tequila. I like tequila, I take a shot of tequila. The Comisardio is really good, by the way. But that's after a long day, you take 1 or 2 shots. It's a stress reliever. But guess what? It's also impaired me to drive now. And in some cases to speak. I'm a lightweight. So if I take a couple shots and people call me, they're like, have you been drinking? Yeah, I have. I've had a couple shots. And so CBD doesn't do that to you. You take a couple drops of the oils, for example, under your tongue. I think I shared the story with you about my mom. I'll share it with you now. My buddies thought I was crazy. You're giving your mother cannabis? What are you, nuts? No. She was actually doing her own research, and she actually asked for it. And so I gave her a couple drops. And I got my mom this gym membership, and she works out now, and she's doing a lot of neat things for herself. But she says, Tony, I'm a little low in energy. She's in her 70s. And I says, okay, well, why don't you take a couple of these drops before you go to the gym? And she goes, okay. She takes a couple drops. She gets on the treadmill. She's not a real, aggressive person at the gym or whatnot. But she goes and she does her workout. She comes back from this workout, and she calls me up. She says, Tony, I'm going to need a bottle of that CBD oil. Why? What's going on? She says, it gives me energy. She says, it gives you energy, right? She says, yeah, I'm getting energy off of this. And she said, I did experience a little bit of the calming you're telling me about, but this gives me energy as well. So I'd like to take it before I go to the gym every day. And I says, okay, great. So there's stories like that all the time about people that try it the first time for whatever reason. If they're having knee pain or, joint pain or whatnot, or if they're having inflammation or whatever. It doesn't matter what age you are. The oil or there's CBD waters out now, or these isolates, again, the creams and things of that nature. People are trying it and they're getting results.
Yeah, and a lot of the mainstream drugstores are carrying the products. I think Walgreens is carrying them, and CVS starts carrying some of the products.
Right.
So it's becoming more and more acceptable in the mainstream stores where the seniors shop and everybody else happens to shop also. You're listening to Business Pulse Talk Radio, the heartbeat of business, and I'm your host, Michael Brett. Have a guest with me today, Tony Nick, and he's got a business called Hemp Hub, and he helps the hemp farmers get their product, because the farmers want to concentrate on growing the product and extracting the oils, and they need to get that to market. So Tony's company actually helps the farmer get that product into mainstream and down to the consumers. And let's talk about, you mentioned you got into this business kind of through the back door of insurance. Let's talk about that. You're a licensed insurance agent, broker.
Right.
Now, what kind of insurance policies do the hemp farmers and cannabis companies need or should be looking at in this environment?
So the farmers themselves need to get insurance on their product. Like in Napa Valley last year, they had those big fires, wiped out millions of dollars of crops. Insurance wasn't even available back then, so now it's available. So you get a general liability policy that covers the value of that crop. So those folks can get a policy that allows them to be covered in the case of a fire like that. The extraction machines, which is really strange, but you cannot lease this equipment. They start at around $700,000 or $800,000. So these guys have to pay full price for this equipment.
You have to buy it. You can't lease.
No, you have to buy. You cannot lease. It's the strangest thing. And again, I really don't understand why that is. I've never really bothered to ask, but every guy that I've talked to about it, they're like, yeah, I had to buy it and I had to pay full price for it. There's a guy out in San Diego, my CBD guy there has 9 different extracting machines. He paid $1 million each for those. And so they're not cheap, but that's the process. The farmer is taking that unit and extracting their product with it, but they had no insurance up until this time. So now it's available. Before there was like 2 or 3 carriers that were carrying it. Now you have a couple dozen that are, making it affordable. They're bringing the prices down. But as I told you before, what's happening is these guys are so used to not paying insurance. Once they find out how much it is,
I found that, yeah.
They're like, I've been fine without it so far. So so it's a tough sort of sale. But anyway, the point is that the policies are available for them now. And the farms and the dispensaries will start to insure their products so that they don't, have any damage or whatnot. But I'm finding that a lot of them just were pretty comfortable without having any insurance.
Now, I'm sure, you've been, watching the news and the financial news, reading the Wall Street Journal. A lot of cannabis companies are going public. Yeah. Either in Canada or getting a listing here in the United States on NASDAQ. There's been a lot of buzz in the media about, taking companies public in the cannabis space. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them have done reverse mergers, going into a shell from a private company to a public vehicle. And I know you have experience with that, and I think you have a shell available. Give us a little bit of background on that.
Sure, absolutely. So Hemp Hub's future it's a really good chance it will be publicly traded. And again, back to these conventions, we found that there's a big gap in between the folks that were considering going public versus now they are because Wall Street was sort of a scary place for, I think, a lot of these companies, again, because of the THC side of it. It's not legal nationwide yet, but once CBD became nationwide, you could legally take those products across state lines.
Through that farm bill that was passed not too long ago.
It was in January when our current administration took care of that. So now those folks are starting to realize, wow, Wall Street could really help us. We could get some capital from a public company. Being exposed now isn't going to cause us any trouble. We can cross state lines. We're not going to be breaking any laws. So now they're starting to realize that the cannabis space is starting to realize that the capital and the relationships they can have on being public are fantastic. So yes, we've been approached, and yes, we've acquired a couple of public companies, and we'll either consider utilizing those, or we'll use them as assets for some of these other folks that are a little bit farther along than we are. But we've been educating a lot of people on the process of a reverse merger and/or going straight through a registration process. And you better believe it that there are literally hundreds of millions of dollars in funds on the sidelines just wanting to do anything related to cannabis because they're seeing the money that these guys are making. Mm-hmm. And coupled with, like I said before, it's a good thing. It's helping people's health, and it's proven to continue to do so.
Why don't you give your telephone number out, the best contact number for you, in case the listeners want to get in touch with you and find out more about your business?
Absolutely, yeah. It's area code 619-248-4450. It's my direct line. Tony's my name. I'll just answer directly and answer any questions you may have. And if you're an interested investor by chance, we could definitely maybe have some neat conversations there. And
then you have an Instagram. A lot of your information's on Instagram right now.
Instagram has been hot for us. It's incredible how many people have contacted us there. It's mind-boggling, actually. Hemp Hut San Diego is our name there. And let me spell it for you. HempHutSandiego. Hemp Hut San Diego.
Excellent.
So you can go there anytime, and we'll definitely make contact with you there.
Good. And you're listening to Business Pulse, the heartbeat of business. I'm your host, Michael Brett. And we've had a great conversation today with Tony Nick, talking about cannabis, hemp, CBD, THC, and helping some of the farmers out to get their product to market. We're going to have more shows. Tony's going to come back on the show again next month and kind of give us an update on where he's at with his business. And we're going to have other experts coming on from Shark Tank and just jam-packed with telling you how to start a business, how to grow a business, how to find investors, how to take your company public, how to get a proper valuation for your business, why you should be concerned about evaluation. Just a lot of things on this show, Business Pulse. It's all about business all the time. I want to thank everybody for listening. I'm your host, Michael Brett. We'll see you next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific.